Ford claims it will be the world's second largest electric car manufacturer within 2 years. Is this possible, and will it happen? Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Electric Viking. Fantastic to see you here today. Welcome to all the new subscribers that have come on board recently. Really awesome to have you all. Make sure, if you're new to the channel, you check out some of the 650 plus videos we have created over the last 6 months. Now, the aim is to keep on making more videos per day because honestly, there is so much going on in this industry that 5 videos per day isn't doing it justice. I know many of you want different things talked about. You're into different types of cars, into different types of batteries, into different types of issues. So the aim here is to give you everything in one place. Now, big thank you to those of you who've decided to come on board and support the channel. Your support means a huge amount. Now, I'll put a link to our Patreon account, our Patreon channel in the description below. Make sure you check that out if you'd like to support the channel too. Now, Paul Linnett reports for Reuters that Ford Motor Company expects to be the world's second largest electric vehicle manufacturer within 2 years. So that means by the end of 2023, they expect to be the second largest in the world. With annual production capacity of around 600,000, a top company executive said within the last couple of days. Now, is this realistic? Is this possible? Is this likely? Is this feasible? Yeah, I'll get to that in just a second. I have a very strong opinion on this, and I don't think it's an opinion because it's mostly based on facts. Now, Ford's optimism comes from increasing demand for its next electric vehicle, the F-150 Lightning electric pickup, with reservations that have now exceeded 200,000. And those numbers don't include fleet buyers, which obviously fleet buyers may double that. So let's say they've got 400,000 pre-orders. That's awesome. Now, those numbers were confirmed by Lisa Drake, who is the Chief Operating Officer at Ford North America. Now, Reuters reported on Wednesday last week that Ford will likely be vying with or fighting with Stellantis for third place in the EV race by 2025, behind Tesla and the Volkswagen Group, based on production forecast data by Auto Forecast Solutions. And this is very much a American, European-centric view of the world. It shows you that these people creating these forecasts, doing this work, this research, they're just ignoring what's going on in China. I mean, do they not realize that more than 50% of electric cars sold worldwide within the last 3 months were all in China? More than 50%. And somehow none of those car companies will be relevant in 2025? Is that realistic? Is that giving you an objective viewpoint on what's really going on globally? That's why I think if you watch this channel, you'll get a much better idea of what's really going on, because I'm not ignoring other countries because it's convenient or because it's politically the thing to do right now. I'm actually going to point out what's really going on. Now, speaking at an investor conference, Drake said Ford is working to vertically integrate more EV components, including power electronics and e-drives, at existing facilities that build parts for combustion vehicles. This is a modern take on Henry Ford's pioneering work in building many of his own components. In other words, Ford is saying, yeah, well, what BYD and Tesla is doing is working. It's called vertical integration. Ford, we used to do that. Remember back in the day, back in the old Henry Ford day? We used to do that. Hey, why don't we do that again? I think this is a good idea. We haven't used vertical integration in this industry in a long time, Drake said, but you're going to hear of it a lot more here at Ford, as Ford and other automakers transition from combustion to electric vehicles. Now, speaking about transitioning, no, I'm not transitioning, but BYD just has. BYD just transitioned from being a company that makes around 50% of their vehicles as gas-powered to being one that makes about 7% of their vehicles as gas-powered. And that's happened within 12 months. Now, is Ford planning to do that within 12 months, the same way that BYD has? No, they're not. That's way too difficult for a company in Ford's current position. But they are making some good moves and saying the right things. Now, Drake said that Ford is working with 5 global battery suppliers to manufacture and help develop battery cells for its future EVs. They're aiming to build 240 gigawatt hours of production capacity by 2030. And those suppliers include SK On, LG Energy Solutions, CATL, BYD, and Panasonic. Very interesting to see here. Another deal being made by BYD with another automaker. Now, Ford expects to reduce EV battery cell costs to $80 per kilowatt hour at the pack level well before the end of the decade, Drake said. Now, the interesting thing is many pundits, observers think that BYD is already there. And Tesla could potentially also be there on their lithium iron phosphate battery supply for their standard range vehicles. Now, apparently Ford is looking at different cell chemistries, including cobalt-free lithium iron phosphate, which they'll get from BYD and CATL, and cell-to-pack structural batteries to help reduce costs. Now, for those of you new to the channel, I've been harping on over and over, like a broken record. If you're not new, I'm sure you're sick of hearing it, that lithium iron phosphate batteries are the battery chemistry of the future. And I've got an interview coming up on the channel with an expert in the lithium iron phosphate battery industry, someone who understands what's going on, who understands the issues with phosphate supply, who understands the chemistry. That's coming up soon. Now, Ford and BMW are working with Colorado-based startup Solid Power on developing solid-state batteries, which Drake said should be commercialized well before the end of the decade. Now, the good news here is that there are a number of different solid-state battery companies in the United States who are, well, doing incredibly well. And it appears as though they are leading in terms of solid-state battery technology. There's all these different automakers who invested into these American solid-state battery companies. I made a video about that recently. I'll put a link in the description below to that video. So that is the good news. The bad news is, well, Ford definitely won't be the world's second largest electric car manufacturer in 2 years' time. That is just physically impossible. Unless some sort of miracle would happen, unless there was the second coming of, who came down and said, here you go, Ford, we're going to just magically make some factories for you and magically make these batteries appear for you, then it would be physically impossible for Ford to do so. Now, if Ford does hit a run rate of 600,000 in 2 years' time, that's great, fantastic news. But still, at the very least, Tesla, Volkswagen, and BYD will all be ahead of that run rate in 2 years' time. Therefore, it is physically impossible, based on Ford's projected numbers coming from Ford, not coming from me or coming from any writer or any, just coming straight from them, for them to become the second largest automaker in terms of electric vehicles output within 2 years. That's not going to happen. But do I believe Ford has long-term success based on what they're doing and saying within the last few weeks? Well, yes, I do. I'll put a link in the description below to the automakers that I believe will succeed by 2030. I made a video about my projections for 2030, and Ford is one of them. This sort of talk, though, saying they're going to be the second largest in the world in 2 years, I think it's embarrassing. I think it's the kind of thing that General Motors are saying, we're the world's biggest electric car company now. We don't make any EVs, but we're still the biggest. It's not that bad. I mean, that's a whole nother level of delusion. But saying you're going to be the second biggest in the world in 2 years' time would only make sense if you said, based on this number of output, we're saying in 2 years' time, we're going to be building 1.5 million per year. And then you'd say, well, okay, it's possible that if you deliver on that, you could become the second largest. But if you say 600,000 is going to be your run rate in 2 years' time, then it's clearly you're not going to be second. So why say second when you're not going to be? I don't know. That said, Jim Farley has been saying all the right things when it comes to the electric cars, when it comes to acknowledging the competition. And I believe he is the right person to lead Ford to at least some level of success in the future. Thanks for watching the video. Look forward to seeing you again on the next one. Bye-bye.